When I was young, I participated in one of the time-honored traditions of this country, YMCA T-ball. For those of you who do not know what T-ball is, it's essentially baseball for children who are not yet coordinated enough to make contact with a moving object. Now, in all modesty, I was good. I mean, I could really hit that ball from that plastic tee. Yet, no matter what my skills were, they were not enough to prevent my team from finishing the season in last place without winning a single game. Well, you may understand my surprise when, at the end of the season, I was awarded with a trophy. Now, even at that age, I was aware of the concept of winning and losing and sucking, and we sucked and we lost often. Why did I have a trophy? Further, why was it the exact same trophy that the league champions received? I didn't understand. The next season did not go any better, and we lost many games. And the season after, and the one after that. In fact, I don't remember winning more than 2 games in any one season. Yet, in my parents' house, you will find 4 YMCA T-ball trophies, all of them with my name. You see, they were participation trophies. I happen to be born at the cusp of the beginning of what I like to call the age of entitlement. We are living in it today. The age of entitlement started when I was young. Well, thankfully, my parents had not been indoctrinated yet, and so I did not grow up that way. But many parents soon after that did become indoctrinated, and their kids were raised that way. Let me explain in greater detail what the age of entitlement is. Just as I was rewarded despite not winning, the age of entitlement rewards people just for being. Participation trophies, pats on the back for trying, A for effort, that sort of hogwash. Why? Because teaching children that sometimes things are hard and you have to increase your effort to achieve those things is bad. Because teaching children that sometimes you fail and that when you fail you need to try harder next time is bad. Because teaching children to get back on the horse, to go back to the drawing board, to practice more, practice harder next time, well, that's all bad. Teaching kids that everyone is special and that everyone deserves a pat on the back just for showing up, well, that's fine. Even if you don't try hard, even if you barely put any effort in it, you still deserve recognition just because. Because that's what happens in the real world, right? Because anyone that is an adult today knows that all you need to do is show up for your handout. Work hard? No thanks. But I want the same outcome as those that do. Oh, the age of entitlement. It's no one being responsible for their own actions. It's putting a cup of hot coffee between your legs in a moving vehicle, scalding yourself, and then somehow being absolved of all responsibility. It wasn't your fault. It was the coffee's fault for being too hot. It was the store's fault for making the coffee hot. Hot coffee is hot. It's getting fat from fast food, blaming the fast food industry for giving you the option of increasing your meal size. It's blaming someone else for giving you the option to overeat, and you taking that option because you're too stupid to know when to say enough. It's blaming society, or the media, or movies and video games, or your parents, or the color of your skin, or the genitalia with which you were born for your own lack of drive, intelligence, motivation, or achievement. It's never your fault. Ever. The first real, genuine, certified pure products of the age of entitlement are coming into their own as we speak. The year is 2015, And over the last few years, we have seen an increase in these children of entitlement. Well, this isn't new by any means. And of course, one of the main byproducts of the age of entitlement is political correctness. This term is used to describe the idea that we should not use any words that offend anyone. And the list of politically incorrect words grows by the day. Let's not forget that most politically correct words and terminology or ideas are idiotic and wrong. Well, here's my favorite example of all. Here is a picture of the continent of Africa. As you can see, it's big. It's really big, in fact. It's so large that it is the second largest continent in land area and boasts 1.1 billion people. There are 54 countries in Africa, ranging from South Africa at the very southern tip to Egypt in the northeast and Western Sahara in the northwest. It's a huge place with lots of people and a lot of diversity. This is a woman from the Republic of South Africa. Well, you may recognize her. Her name is Charlize Theron, and she was born in Benoni, in the Transvaal province. She is, well, white and Caucasian, Anglo, and there's no surprise there. South Africa was a Dutch colony, and then a British one. Well, there can be no question. She is white of skin, blonde hair, blue eyes. She's white. The end. Yet, she's African. She was born in Africa. She held South African citizenship. She then became an American citizen, but we'll touch on that in a bit. Well, there are both white people, which are called Africans, after the language they speak, which is a derivative of Dutch, as well as the sub-Saharan people often known as Zulu in South Africa. Well, let's move on though, because the diversity in Africa is truly remarkable. Next, I want to travel all the way to the north, to the coast of the Mediterranean Sea, and the wonderful country of Egypt. Now, Egypt's history varies greatly from that of South Africa. Despite also being colonized by the British, they were first conquered by the Arab Muslims in the 600s. As you can imagine, this led to a very different group of people living in this country. Here's a picture of an Egyptian woman. Her name is Tara Ahmad, Egyptian model, and she was born in Cairo, Egypt. She is Egyptian. She is African. She is very different from Charlize Theron. Though she shares fine facial features, her skin is more olive than white. Her hair is black and her eyes are dark as well. Wow! Such diversity in one continent, two extremely different countries, and two extremely different women that come from those countries. However, we are not finished. Well, let's take a look at a third and final country. Côte d'Ivoire, or Ivory Coast, is a country on the southern coast of Western Africa. Like many of its African neighbors, it was colonized by the Europeans, in this case French. Aissata Dia, Miss Côte d'Ivoire, is the lady we'll be looking at this time. Now, she was born in Abidjan. As you can see, she is very different from the other two we have seen so far. She has dark skin and coarse hair, unlike her two African sisters. Yet she is also African. She is just as African as Tara Ahmad and Charlize Theron. In fact, there are even more different types of people in Africa that I can't cover today, because it would take too long. With over 1 billion people, that's not hard to imagine. So many Africans, so much diversity, it's incredible. Well, what's the point? Well, like I said, all of these women are Africans. Let's pretend one of them moved to the United States and became a U.S. citizen. In fact, let's not pretend, because Charlize Theron actually did that. She An African moved to the US and became a citizen. An African American, if you will. You know who isn't African American? Gabrielle Union, former model. Why? Well, she was born in Nebraska, which, if you did not know, is most definitely not in Africa. Out of all of the continent of Africa, which we have agreed is really big, Nebraska is not in there in any way, shape, or form. Now, let me be perfectly clear. Unless you are from Africa, you are not African American. Well, I'd even say if your parents were both African, you could be African American even if you were born in the US. But otherwise, you aren't African American. See, African American is one of those ugly politically correct terms some people insist on using to blanket term all black people. Because black is offensive. Negro is obviously offensive, and they wouldn't dare call themselves Negroid, which is the anthropologically correct term. In fact, if we want to be as accurate as possible, we should refer to everyone as either Negroid, Mongoloid, or Caucasoid. Now, obviously, these terms have fallen out of favor in common speak, but they are still very much in use in the anthropological and forensic fields. The fact of the matter is that we can divide people into three distinct but similar groups based on facial features and cranial structure, and skin color is irrelevant. But we don't want to be accurate. Oh, we want to be politically correct. So people demand we call them something that they are not. And if we don't, we are labeled racists, bigots, or worse. Even if some black people do not want to be called African American because they're from the Caribbean, they are still grouped together with people who do, simply because they're of the same facial features and skin color. And this is the problem with political correctness. It's only correct politically. It isn't correct in any other sense. It isn't correct logically. It isn't correct scientifically. It's only correct in the sense that we aren't offending someone else. Because in the age of entitlement, everyone is free from being insulted or offended. Ever. Because that goes against the basic tenets of the entitled. You're special, and you're entitled to never be insulted. And if anyone ever does, you can complain. And chances are something will be done about it, because the people in charge are also products of the age of entitlement. The age of entitlement, and therefore politically correctness, by its nature, stifles freedom of speech. It allows all things to be said as long as they are in accordance to what the entitled think and say. This is the future. You can't say things that offend people. Freedom of speech is a one-way street. People don't want you to have your legal rights as stated in the Constitution of the United States of America. They want you to not offend them. If they offend you, it doesn't matter. But if they are offended, then they are up in arms. The internet is full of websites and articles, all dedicated to being offended and being offensive. Everyone has a thing over which they are offended. And so people patrol the internet in college halls to make sure that no one is being offended and that everyone gets free hugs if they are. Because that's what happens when everyone gets a trophy. No one knows how to deal with the ugliness of reality. Instead, they cry about being offended and run to their hug box. This is the future. A world in which everyone is always offending someone else. Where no one can have an opinion. And when someone does, if you disagree with it, you can say it's offensive. And they'll lose their job. Just because you're an idiot who never learned how to cope with things, that may make you upset. Thank you, Age of Entitlement. Thank you, politically correct words and actions. Thank you, liberal fanatics. And thank you for listening.